seeing as how it is 7:02 p.m. on Thursday, February 11th. We'll call to order this edition of the Norton Select Board. Let the record show that all 5 board members are present, as well as Town Manager Michael Units. Tonight's session is a special one. It is focused entirely on budget review for the upcoming annual town meeting. So we will be fortunate to have several department heads in to talk about things and answer any questions. With that said, take it away, Mr. Town Manager.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so first up is the highway cemetery budget. It really should be called highway cemetery carpentry, moving street light division. And so the highway budget, some of the main things in the budget.
Mike, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Does anyone know out of the individual PDFs that we got, which one this is?
That's with 420.
420, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, thanks, Brett. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike, I just wanted to be able to see it a little clear.
I made my own crib sheet.
So under 420 highway, there's under personnel services, increase of $25,000. That's due to contractual increases, people that moved up steps. Uniform and clothing allowance went up $550 due to contractual. Telephones went up $500. That's because Keith this year has had 2 people out, so they're not using their Nextels this year, and they will be back from military leave next year.
Did you just say Nextel? Okay. I didn't even know that existed anymore.
And other supplies, $1,000 increase because Keith's been requested to make more signs this year, and so it's the cost of that has increased. And then down below under surface treatments on roads, the cost of asphalt's gone up significantly this year, so Keith's asking for a $2,000 increase in that. Any questions on that part of the budget?
Mike, just that, oh, go ahead, whoever that was.
Oh, Renee, you go first.
I was just going to ask you, so I know what I'm looking at here. So from the fiscal year 2020 expended, right? That is that what's spent right now, or are we still in fiscal year 2020?
So you
have, right?
We're at fiscal year 21. So
oh, okay.
You see the FY21 budget, and then next to that you see what was expended through December 31st. And
okay. There's not a column that shows like what's remaining, right?
no.
Okay.
Any other questions on that portion of the budget?
Just out of curiosity, is the cemetery, is that just, is that tied to the actual number of, I see that it's just, is it just, I'm sorry, it's Montgomery in the speaker. Was there additional headcounts put into the cemetery wages? Or is that just you hire as you need?
No, there's been no increases in the number of headcount for 2 years. 2 years ago, Keith added 2 people.
Okay.
So it would just be where he's the hours that he's anticipating his guys will be working in the cemetery.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that, Mike, with the buildings, even though that's going to be done contractually through a construction company, if the debt exclusions or anything happen this year, if they do pass and the election's coming up, is there anything that the highway department's gonna be dealing with because of these buildings either being relocated out of their current building and or anything to prepare the buildings that are coming up? Is there anything that's gonna fall into them that we're just not seeing? Or Keith, maybe I'll throw that at you, I apologize.
I wouldn't anticipate anything this year because I wouldn't anticipate any, if the projects move forward, I don't anticipate that we'd be at any stage where we'd be moving out of the building.
Okay. What about additional work? Is there any gonna be additional work that isn't covered in the scope that's gonna fall onto the highway department?
I don't think so, no.
Not yet. Not yet.
This is, yeah, don't hold your breath, Keith. Okay.
Mike, did you have more questions?
I have a question, but I'll go last. So go ahead, Renee.
Thank you, Chuck. I was just gonna ask Mike, under personnel, so it looks like for, when I look at what was budgeted versus the expenditures, like some of these aren't even close to, halfway, and then there's certain things like the drug testing, right? We carry $1,000, but even at most, it was a third of that 2 years ago. Like, why are these items so high, and then it's just being returned to free cash instead of us bringing these down to lower the overall budget?
Well, with the drug testing, we're part of a pool through Sursage. So we never know what guys are going to be called for drug testing and how many. We have to anticipate that, we're going to have them called in. We just don't know.
But isn't the purpose of the pool so that we typically aren't exposed to 100% testing annually?
That's right. Yep, that's why we're in the pool.
So is there an opportunity to bring some of these down so we could bring the overall cost of the budget down?
Well, as you look at the budgets, I haven't made any decisions on any of the budgets. You can see my columns on.
Can I step in for a minute?
Yep, go ahead, Keith.
On the drug testing, they've messed up a little bit on the drug testing. They were never charging us for their services. They were only charging us for the test. So now when they come into the highway garage, it's another $100 for the service. So if it was $100, it's $200 now. And we really don't know when they're going to come in. I don't even know how this works. Supposed to be in some kind of like all the towns together in this pool, and once in a while we'll have 5 guys get called. Sometimes we won't get none for 5 months, so we never know when we're gonna get called. And it went up.
And then what about like the electricity? Why is it so much lower from last year and the year before? We're halfway through, and the one above it, the purchases of services.
The electricity is for the salt shed that's down on 55 West Main Street, and it's kind of crazy. We have another building over there that's hooked to it, and I don't know, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. They put all those new lights in, so I think we got a surcharge on the lights because you got to pay for them. So that's why it was higher. But in the summertime, it's nothing. In the wintertime, if we have the lights on all night mixing salt and sand, we got the fans going. It does eat a lot of electricity, but with these new lights, it should be lower. This is, I think, the first winter I think we had with them, and it's been pretty good. But we did have surcharge.
Okay, so we might have an opportunity now that everything's in place.
Yeah, I would probably wait it out to the end of the season and see what, how much we spend, but.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, go ahead, Michael. I was on mute.
Sorry. Keith, on this budget, obviously, it's you took what you've had in the last year and anticipated. Is there anything on here that you didn't put on here that you say, almost your wish list of, hey, I could do this. I really want to do this in my department. Is there anything on this that's not included here that you'd say, I wish this was a priority for the town and my department to get this done? Just kind of put it on our radar, and I throw that to both you and Mike. Is there anything on this that we're not seeing here that didn't make the budget? And I'm not saying this is the year that we're going to do it, but
Yeah, right. I would have to think about that really right now, I think I'm pretty good right now, but,
And I think this is an important question. One of the things that we're talking about as a select board is possibly doing some planning and planning and trying to give direction to the finance committee on these are the priorities for the town, and to give, not to finance committee, to give to the town manager on the budget. And we're a little bit late for this year, but I think that's one of the things that, if you thinking about this and you walk away, if you want to get back to us, if there's something that pops up, please do share it with Mike, and then Mike will be glad to share with us, I'm assuming.
yeah, I will take that in consideration. Thank you.
Renee, Mike, anything? Brad? So just to, I think this question was asked earlier, but there are no new positions accounted for in this?
No, we got them 2 years ago.
Yep, 2 new workers. Any changes in hours or staffing? Anybody going from full to part-time or vice versa?
No, I kept the college kids on this year because the 2 other guys went to the military. So it worked out well for the town with the plowing.
So, all right. That's it for me. Anyone else have questions for Keith or Mike?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much, Keith. Appreciate it.
All right.
Snow and ice, and we're proposing 80,000 again for the snow and ice budget.
Oh, shit.
Sounds good. The standard, Mike, when it comes to snow budget?
Yep, so we budget 80,000 every year. It's the one account that we can deficit spend in. We usually make up for it with our free cash. And if we did increase the budget, we can never go backwards and be able to deficit spend.
Explain that again to me again, Michael.
So if we increase the budget 90,000, we can never drop it below 90,000 again. We have to go 90,000 or higher in order to be able to deficit spend. So that's why we keep it at 80,000 every year. And as you can see, last year we were pretty close.
Real close.
Yeah.
This year we're over about 60,000.
I'm going to ask a very stupid question. That's probably more of a not a municipal thing, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Of course.
We're all up for
Mr.
stupid
Chairman, may I
questions.
ask a stupid question? Mike, there's no way, or no one insures any risk on that, right?
Insures any risk on what?
Up or down. There's no way we can kind of premium on that. I mean, we seem to manage it okay, right? Because obviously last year we would have lost on any insurance policy or anything. But I'm assuming like in 2015 when we probably got wiped out with the Snowmageddon year, right? I mean, this is just one of those things we just deal with it when we deal with it. There's no way.
And actually that year, they made a provision that you could spread the deficit out over three years because it was such a bad year.
Okay.
That's not a bad question, Mike.
That was the Snowmageddon year of 2014, 2015.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions on snow and ice? All right, seeing none. Thanks again, Keith. Is Keith free to go yet, Mike, or is he going to stick around for
Free to
something
go.
else? All right. Thank you,
Have a
Keith.
good week.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Next is library, and the library has come in with a request of $517,051. It's roughly 3% above their budget from last year.
At 620.
Thank you. Wait, 620?
Yeah.
6:10.
Oh, I'm sorry, 630, I think. No, it's 610.
610.
Brad, we gotta work on your cheat sheet.
I can't read my own writing.
And one of the things I just wanted to look for the supplemental, let me switch that. So the library is very fortunate that the Balfour Fund, the library can use the interest from that fund, and which pays for a good chunk of the library budget. So this year, they're using $121,850 out of the Balfour Fund to cover their expenses. And
What was the amount, Mike, again? I apologize.
okay, it's $121,850.
And last year was 113,950.
113. And is the public information on is that an endowment to the town, or is that an endowment from Balfour?
Do you want me to explain, Mike?
Go ahead, Lee.
So we're a town department, town building, town employees, but we are also a 501c3, so we're a nonprofit corporation. The Balfour funded the building of the new library, which is now 30 years old this year. So the name of the library is LG and Mildred Balfour Memorial Library. And we had left over $500,000, and they've managed it so well that we still have, over $1 million in it, and we draw down per IRS requirements, $65,000 a year now to help with the supplemental budget. Then we also get money from state aid and different sources. And it pays for the operations of the library. So the town pays for salaries and materials and sales membership, which keeps us certified and able to get state aid. And then the endowment and the supplemental budget pays for the operations and things like the audit, fuel, electricity, the grounds, those kinds of things.
And Lee, on your materials, you're required to have 15% of the budget go into materials?
Yeah, the budget for materials is based on the population of the town. So our population, we should be spending 15% of our total budget. If you spend less than that, then they cut your state aid and you risk being decertified. And for those of you who don't know, we were decertified in 2008. We lost about 40% of our budget, and it took a number of years to get back. And we're still not quite there. We're at 45 hours a week, and long-term goal, or another year, we would like to be back to 50 hours, which is where a town of our size should be open 50 hours a week to fully meet state requirements.
And the materials include digital?
Yep, and we did shift a lot this year. For instance, when we had to close the building temporarily, we shifted a lot of our spending to online. And our online, I know that, I don't have all the figures, but I know that, for instance, our circulation of our Hoopla, which is one of those, you can get streaming media, television, movies, ebooks, audiobooks, went up 49% this year, almost 50% this year. Ancestry, which you used to have to access that in the library because you can't have people in the building all the time. They allowed home access. It went up 144% use of that. So even though they're losing some things, we're trying to make it so that they can have as much as possible, even when we're not open, our doors aren't open. So we did shift staff, what they were doing. We spend more time on the virtual branch, obviously, because we're not having as many things. We can't have programs in the library. The community room is a quarantine area. So even when we are allowed to have people in the building, we can't have programs. People aren't going to want to come to big programs anyway. We're not going to be allowed to have, even next year coming, I don't think there's going to be big programs like we used to have. Last year we had 5,230 people attend programs. This year we had virtual programs. And a lot of you are zoomed out, and so we don't have the huge attendance, but we did have 750, I think, attend adult programs so far this year, which is not bad for virtual.
Well, yeah, I think you guys have adjusted very well to the pandemic, given the situation. And I know we, my family, we certainly benefit from that. So it's great, and we appreciate everybody's work. Are there opportunities like for any shifts to do outdoor type things? And I know this is kind of off of the budget, but I'm wondering if there are, what that impact would be given like the COVID requirements.
Well, I was saying that I wish we could all get vaccinated, and then we could allow more people to access different areas of the library, and we could do more outreach. I think right now people are very hesitant to do that. So what we're doing for outreach is we're doing the take and makes and the crafts to go, so people can come and take the things and work on them at home. And we do Zoom, fitness classes and things like that. And we've had a ton of people say how much they appreciate that. But as far as like going places right now, I don't know that the staff would be comfortable. We did lose 4 staff after COVID. They didn't feel safe returning. We work with the public, and I understand. And we have hired some people, but they're obviously still in training, and they're gonna have to be retrained as we open up more and it becomes a little bit more normal. Right now, we're still, every day we wait and see, what is it, are we gonna be, we're still in the red. We can just do contactless pickup and take and make, so we're gonna be able to open the building again to allow people to do browsing and use the computers. So every day we play it by ear and play it by what the Board of Health tells us.
Sure, thank you.
And I found out that Norton is now in the yellow category from the DPH dashboard.
Awesome, because I looked today and it was red, so I'm glad to hear that.
Excellent news to get. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
Is there any, and this is, and I apologize for not knowing this, are there any synergies to the limited libraries that we have at the schools? Is there any cross services or any synergies that can be picked up? I know that 2 different departments, budgets, I get that, but is there any synergies at all that can be shared with, that would enhance some of the school libraries?
Don't think so. In the past, I used to visit, I used to be the youth services librarian. I used to visit the schools, and we would do a lot more, but now basically what we can do is we can coordinate our summer reading program. So that's the one thing we do, that we coincide. So they use the same theme that we do, and we collaborate a lot with that. And Leah, who's the youth services librarian now, she does do a video that they present in the schools about summer reading, and we visit Head Start, things like that. But we can't really do the same. When they have unions and they have, we just can't do that,
Okay, yes.
But we are part of a network, so that's great. We can, we share with that, and we get delivery from the state, so people have access to over 5 million items, and we get deliveries 5 days a week.
I do a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, good.
Is it possible to, has there been any exploration on trying to get the school libraries into a sales program? Do they not have, obviously, I know they're different animals, and I get that.
No, we do have school libraries that are members of sales, so they're more than welcome to join. That would be something that they would have to, and it's not nearly as expensive for them to do it as it is a public library. We do give them a better rate.
Would there be synergies or not?
Probably more, yeah, definitely. But that's something that they would have to.
They would have to champion,
yeah.
Hey, Lee, do we spend any part of the budget on like increasing the diversity of our materials?
I think we're pretty good at having when we do collection development, we're very careful about what we add to the collection. And I know that the youth services librarian in particular has done a lot of weeding and replacing the past few years. She's been there 2 years. And the Moms Club disbanded recently. I don't know if you heard about that. And they made donations to the library so that we could order diverse materials. And we've been doing it in the adult department for a number of years. So I think if you did an audit of our collection, you'd be pretty impressed at how diverse it is. So,
That's great, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Is there anything that, obviously you run on a control budget managed by an endowment and then managed by the town? Is there anything in this budget that could be in this budget, but just obviously being conscientious like we are? Is there anything on here that isn't in here that you would love to see the select board or the town consider in future?
Well, as I said, it would be nice to be able to go back to 50 hours a week, which would be an increase in the budget. That's where we were in 2008. So I don't know exactly what the number would be for that, but I don't think it's the time right now. So
Yeah.
and I
That
also
was
want
the
to
one
point
thing.
out, yeah, that's the one
That's
thing.
the one thing you would champion?
Yeah, because the Friends help us with programs when they were able to do fundraisers again. They're very good about that. They help us with museum passes. I write cable grants at least twice a year. They have those, and we got the self-service kiosk this year. We got a cricket machine, so we're going to be able to help with our make and takes, and then it'll be able to be used for a makerspace when we are able to have people in the building again. And we got some equipment to do virtual programming. So we do solicit outside sources of funding so we don't overburden the town.
Okay.
I have a great staff. So I do. I'm very, very fortunate.
Great.
Well said, Lee, and I can't wait to see the staff.
And great patrons.
That's right. And also, I can't wait to visit the other libraries once they open this year, once this pandemic is over in the summer. And I can't wait to visit all the libraries soon so I can resume my research.
We miss everyone. We really do.
Yeah.
Well, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mike, can I just have ask one question of you, Mike? When we look at that 517, is the 121 included into the 517, or is that on top of that?
You mean the 121 on the supplemental?
Yeah.
That's on top of
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. And Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the next person, I just have a quick question. Can I just ask a question on that? Actually ask the group a question on select board. When I spent a little bit of time, obviously, at the finance committee meeting on Monday, and then had some time to spend a little bit of time with Mike today, and just trying to get a sense on what our roles are here with the budget and setting priorities for the town. I think understanding the flow of the process, that's one of the things, I maybe wanted to see if, we've seen the highway budget, we've seen the library budget, are there certain, you guys, and especially Brad, I'm sorry, Brad, to call you out on this, you have more experience in this than I do. When do the conversations or priorities come up in this? Because I think, I'm not sure if people can hear me, but when do we talk about priorities for the town and the budget and so forth?
I think Jack's
Usually,
having trouble on his audio, everyone.
I'm sorry?
Jack's having trouble on his audio. That's why I think he might be.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just heard I saw a text come in, but I was talking and I couldn't read and talk at the same time. So I guess maybe you can lead maybe a little bit of discussion on this, because you probably have the most experience of all of us.
I'll just tell you that normally Mr. Units does the initial, we're looking at what Mr. Units would see initially from the departments.
Yep.
Mr. Units would take their figures usually and try to get them into line with what he anticipates for finances, and presents that more or less to the select board, and we'll go over what he feels his important points are, and the select board would at that time indicate, maybe a different area of interest that they want to pursue, or we're really getting into this earlier than normal, because usually the town manager takes the initial figures, whittles them down, and takes what he can from the wish list. Most of the wish lists seem very lean this year, but sometimes there are things in there that just are not feasible. And he has a number that he knows he has to stay under, and he has to be as fair as he can. And so he'll make his initial cuts to their budgets and then present those to us, showing what the requests were, or in some cases, the wish list number, and then the number that he felt he had to reduce it to come into a balanced budget for the entire town.
Yeah, and Brad, and I think, and Jack, I'm just gonna keep going, assuming your audio, just, yeah,
Can you hear me at all?
I can, you can.
No.
No, can't hear you, can't hear you, Jack.
Keep going, Michael, thank you.
So I guess, Brad, I understand what you're saying is, I just want to make sure, and this is, you know, this is poor people problems, and I say that respectfully, I just wrong words here. We obviously have a tight budget, and it isn't like there's this large pool where can we just go, oh, our priorities are here, we're going to spend an extra $1 million here or there. I understand that. But I think one of the things that I've heard since even coming on to the select board is the finances committee's desire to know that not just only we've seen it and we're okay with it, but more of a direction that this is where we would want our focus to be as a select board. And I will accept any criticism or feedback from my fellow members on that. But that's what I'm hearing from the finance committee. And this is maybe a discussion. I don't mean to have it to delay this meeting because we have obviously a lot of managers on it, but it's something that I think we as a group have to really kind of get our arms around. Maybe it isn't this fiscal year, but maybe it's next year. But I feel like we need to kind of go in that direction.
Michael, I think you bring up a valid point, and I mean, I'd certainly ask Mike that by having this discussion earlier, right, where you haven't provided your recommendations and hearing our questions, I would imagine that will help you to think about like what are the priorities, right? Because I think that it flows as part of normal conversation about what we're considering, right? Not to have additional discussion, but I would think, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, if our questions and input are valuable to you at this stage, just to understand holistically, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mike. What were you gonna say?
No, I was saying that is helpful.
Yeah. I think it's because Mike, one of the things that I'm realizing in this process, and you and I had the discussion today, right? You put a lot of effort into this budget already, right? I mean, you're not even close to being done, and there's a lot more work that needs to be done in it. But I think it's unfair. One of the things that I'm very conscious of is being critical of work that I'm coming in the last hour and being critical of your work. And I just want to make sure that we're aligned, right? You're running a town, Mike, and with the guidance of so many different departments, including the select board. I just want to what I don't want to do is become critical of you when at the beginning of these processes. So I want to, it's something I don't know what I want to achieve here, Mr. Chairman, but I'm thinking that, one of the things after today is maybe we collectively, if there are any concerns about any of the town budgets, we send our recommendations to both any concerns or recommendations back to the town manager after this, as including the finance committee, and that might just close some of the loops. Maybe that's overkill, but I'm just trying to.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think one of the things that I'd like to add to that, Michael, too, is, when we had this discussion during negotiations and other things, like I happen to flip to the next page, like, we're in a pandemic, we know our revenue is down, we know the budget has to be down, we have to be more trim. I would not expect across the board to see raises in the 4 and 5%, given that. So I think it's a priority, right? Like, and I've said this before, I think it's more important that we keep people employed as opposed to raising salaries and then not being able to employ everybody, right? Because they have opportunities while they're employed to have healthcare and things like that. So I mean, I push that out as one of my priorities to, you know, help us operate within the budget that we have and continue to employ the people that we have.
That's very fair.
So hopefully you guys can still.
Oh, we got you now. Now you're super clear.
Oh, good, wonderful. Where I've been thinking about this process as well in a slightly different way, where to me, it doesn't necessarily make no sense for the budget to even be presented to FinCom at this point if, Mike, you haven't done your analysis and your recommendation yet, because this could be pie in the sky numbers that the department heads are putting forward. FinCom is investing their time in it, but in reality, it has no feasible chance. Does it make more sense to wait to review FinCom after your recommendations, and almost we become, the roles kind of flip a little bit, where we meet with the department heads ahead of time to help finesse the priorities, and then makes your recommendations, and then FinCom can look at the final recommendation. And could be way off the reservation here, maybe completely off from what FinCom wants to do, but I'm just thinking in terms of, I think, what our chartered role is as the keepers of the budget and setters of priorities. That makes a little bit of sense to me. So curious to hear feedback on that.
I would agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I'm going to speak. Mike, did you want to respond before I spoke? I'm sorry.
I would just agree with the setting of the policies and priorities. As far as the way the FinCom wants to review budgets, I mean, that's really up to them. I don't see anything wrong with doing it the way that they do it. They just like to get an idea up front, and that when I come in with my recommendations and where my cuts are, they then can usually will ask department heads, say the police department, that overtime was cut, how is that going to affect you? And the chief will let them know. But they generally do like to see the department requests up front.
I do the budgets for my division at work, and I would certainly talk to all the division heads first before, pulling all this information. I feel like we do things, Mr. Chairman, to your point, I think we do things a little bit too much again in silos where everyone's sort of looking at it in not real time. And so there's just too many nuances that when we actually all finally look at the final version, I think we might be missing pieces. So I just think it would be, and maybe obviously we're a little bit too far down the road for this year, but certainly next year looking at things well in advance and sort of having those conversations. So it would alleviate work for you, Mike. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not constantly going back to different groups to sort of figure out where things can move around.
Yeah, and I think one of the important messages that we ought to hear, and like I said, I mean, Mike, this is your budget. You know what I'm saying? It's your budget that you're proposing, right? And the priorities from the town come from us. And tell me and by the way, correct me if anything I say is wrong. I'm open to it. I don't want to micromanage your budget process, but I want to make sure the priorities. And I'm not being critical of previous select boards, but I feel like we need to make sure that it's very crystal clear, because I've heard from several members of FinCom that they don't feel like they get enough direction from the select board on the budgeting process. And it's something that, personally as a goal, as a member of the select board, that I want to alleviate. Because, there's also a lot to say that there really isn't that much money to be moving around here that when we're going to move, we'd be like, oh, Michael, pull the $1 million from there to add it to XYZ department. But I think it's important for us that we're giving direction to the committees that have requested it. Certain members of the committees have requested it. So.
Mike, do you feel like we're doing this too late? Because I was just looking at the timeline, right? So your final budget proposal is due like end of March. So us having these discussions now, is that too late in the game? I know it's been said a couple times.
No, it's not. Because, I mean, my thought is it would be better when I review all the budgets and the potential revenues and then come up with suggested cuts. But this will give some idea on what, where you have priorities on what you don't want to see cut.
But Mike, to your point though, right, if you do that, I understand the way that you're describing it, but at that point, FinCom has already seen it and is giving you almost guidance. They're the ones that are giving you guidance instead of us saying, instead of you kind of saying, and I'm not saying that it would be so, but logistically, I would say if FinCom gives you this, I won't go against what FinCom says as a general rule. I mean, unless it's so crazy, but
Yeah, FinCom
that's
usually
the direction.
Yeah, FinCom doesn't give guidance usually this early. They wait until I come back with suggested cuts.
So
I think,
If I could make like an observation from historically, I think the role of and the personality of the FinCom has evolved over the years. And when I first got involved with this stuff, the FinCom wasn't looking for anybody's, input from a board so much on the budget to make their fiscal decisions, because they were more concerned with the fiscal health of the community and trying to be fair to everyone. And I mean, they would listen to the boards to hear what they thought the priorities were, but it seemed like they were content to go through and be the financial managers. And if they came upon a decision that they thought was a tough decision, they might reach across and, look for input. But it just seems it's totally different than the way has been done in the past.
So from my perspective, I almost think that we go back to something that, Renee, I think you tried to get this started last year, which was more frequent joint meetings between ourselves and FinCom. Because I think in trying to be the most efficient with the time of all involved, inclusive of the town manager and all the department heads that are coming back to talk to us tonight when they've already met with FinCom on Monday, I think if we can do a few longer sessions with them to go through this, that way we all get to ask questions. Mike's getting a broader range of feedback at one time. Maybe that can shorten the timeline. I think there's some value there.
I mean, I thought we definitely had some good discussions last time, right before the pandemic. And Michael, to your point, I can tell you there are many areas that the select board was not in agreement with the finance committee. I wouldn't say that I don't think that that's what we're trying to accomplish. I think it's more that, we're kind of like a checks and balance, right? Like we can talk about the priorities, and Brad, to your point, you're absolutely right. Like ever since I joined, that was one of the things, or like, we want more collaboration. We want to be aligned to the priorities while they still have the responsibility, the fiscal responsibility. I think that collaboration certainly helps. The other thing that I think too, and I know that this is a bit off, but I think about this because of the situation we're in, the pandemic, and in our conversation on the Hicks Fund, right? Like us being aware earlier in the process to understand what those deficiencies are and where Mike's going to have to cut, and where we say, you know what, maybe we don't want that. What other options do we have to supplement the town budget? Like I think that just helps us to be more informed to make that decision in a couple months, or try to, right?
I think in the interest of trying to get through the things that we have tonight.
I was going to say, poor Lee, she did an amazing job, and then we just put her through that.
I fully support this discussion. I support a modification to this. Maybe it's possible that we can get maybe Steve and Amy from FinCom to join us next week, and we can talk a little bit about process and how to make it work better for everybody. With its own dedicated time slot, as opposed to running over Lee with reckless abandon. And with that said, I will go back to the question I tried to ask before my headphones died. So Lee, what's driving the increase from 501 to 517?
It's actually a pretty reasonable increase. It's about 3%. We did have steps and stuff for salaries, and we also had increases for a little bit for materials. We have things in there like payroll. We increased the payroll. I think we're the only department that does our own payroll. And what were the other things?
So why is it that you guys do your own payroll? Is that because of your management structure?
I have this was way before I came. The library's been around for 130 years or something, so I think that they've always done things, it's been very unique. Like I said, we're a town department, we're town employees, town building, but there's a lot of things that we're kind of outsiders, so.
At the current library was open, its doors in July 1991, and before that, it was in an old red brick building at Mansfield Avenue, which was built in 1887, and it moved there current in 1991. And now,
Eliza Wheaton donated the other building, so Wheaton owns that other building.
Wow.
And when they outgrew that and they couldn't meet the ADA codes and stuff, they built this building. I would be fine if the town did the payroll, but this is the way we do it. We have our own tax ID number. It's just very different.
So Mike, that's something that you can look into. That does seem a bit odd to me. And I wonder, I don't know how much of your budget is going towards payroll, but that could be another drop in the bucket to get you back to those 50 hours of operational time each week.
I don't want to get Catherine upset with me. Put more on the treasurers. Because they have a lot on their plate too, but yeah, I mean, we did switch to the same payroll company and the same schedule as the town when I became director. We used to have a different payroll company, and we used to have we got paid on a different schedule, like twice a month. Now we get paid every other week, same payroll company, and all the same things.
So we have two separate contracts that we're paying, probably administrative fees that are doubled up where we might have some efficiencies, right?
Yeah, Mike, if you can look into that, I think that would be something, maybe if it's a contract, it can't be done this year, but we should look to align those the next time they expire or up for renewal. I can't see Mike. Did he fall into a black hole?
No, he got booted down. Mike, if you talk, I think he'll come back up to the top 6.
We'll look into that. I think it might have to do with the 501c3 status, but I'll check it.
All right.
Yeah, that's why we have that audit too, which is what, $10,500 each year. And that probably has to do with the trust and the 501c3 thing, so.
Thank you, Lee. Any other questions for Lee in the library line item? All right. Seeing
Thank you
none.
very much for your time. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Look forward to talking to you.
All right. 50 minutes in and 2 down. We're doing good.
Sorry. Sorry.
That was good discussion, Michael. That I think clearly it was on the mind of several of us, so I'm glad you got it kickstarted. So, all right, Mike, roll us on to the next page.
Next is the town clerk, and in Lucia's budget, she has an increase from 118,050 to 122,188.
Wait, Mike,
What number?
161.
161.
Yeah, you're still sharing the library page.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
I feel like this is like a bingo. What page?
Well, I heard 161.
161.
Bingo.
bingo! B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O.
All right.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
So under personnel services, the increase goes from 118,050 in this year's budget to 122,188. And under charges and expenditures, there's a reduction from 10,719 to $8,650. Under purchase of services, there's a reduction in that line item of 1,500. And also under printing, a reduction of 500. And the other part of the budget is elections. Let's see.
It's down near the bottom. At least on my sheet.
And under elections, obviously, there's a major reduction from 65,480 to 20,070 because we had the presidential election this year and state election, and that we don't have those coming up this coming year.
Hey, Mike, can I ask on that, on the sheet that I'm looking at, it shows like our expenditures right now are like $6,000 in excess of, I think, what we had budgeted, and then we have another election coming up, or is that that's just state election costs? Okay, never mind. How do we, well, it's not really never mind. How do we pay for that additional? Like, do we have to go to town meeting and request it be transferred from free cash?
So under elections, right now, it was,
Row 45 is what I was looking at.
well, it's just the bottom line. Money can be moved around expenses, so there's still over $10,000 remaining.
And are there COVID costs in there, or is that separate and reimbursed already?
Expenses due to COVID were put through the CARES fund.
Okay, so those don't show on here at all? Did you say yes?
They don't show on.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman. Mike, you've cut down the election costs and the postage costs and a lot. You really think?
I didn't cut anything
I'm
yet.
sorry, I apologize. I will, sir, sorry. You
I
are
didn't
absolutely right.
mean yet, Lisa. I just meant I didn't cut anything.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean cut. So it just seems that we're underestimating a little bit. And are we just gonna know that we're gonna have to transfer? I am 95% sure we're going to be mailing out ballots again this year. I am.
Well, right, obviously, we haven't budgeted for legislation that hasn't passed yet. You know, if that does pass and it's gonna affect the budget after July 1,
Yeah.
then we'll have to make adjustments before the final budget.
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel that you're right, I guess, yeah, right, you budget for what you have right now, but I don't think we're going back. I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy this, hey, I can do vote from mail even after COVID. I just don't think it's ever gonna go back to the way it was. But, okay, all right, but we're budgeting what we know when we're living in the current situation, not predicting anything, correct?
To Michael's point, would it be possible to run the numbers for if we needed to do a mail-in ballot for one town election and one state election next year? And that way we can.
I know Luke already has that.
Just becomes easier to drop that in, as I anticipate that if this legislation does pass, that'll be sometime before March 31st, which should give us time to incorporate it in the budget so that we don't need to do a fund transfer after the fact.
Yeah, and I haven't read the legislation, but I'm assuming there's maybe there's a sunshine clause or there may not be, I don't know. The other thing that I would ask Lucia and Mike, Mr. Chairman, is if we are going that direction, where are we with staff? Is that appropriate level staff? I mean, we know what the election costs were this year. They were out of control and we saw the process, but sooner or later, we're gonna have to just accept that we're gonna need more people at the town clerk's office. I mean, this is, certainly it's not gonna be just election folk, we're just gonna need more people at the town clerk's office. Am I off base on that?
Well, if you needed someone for election, it would be under the elections budget, not the town clerk's budget. And it would be more hours or more people working part-time for her. And I know Charlene Lucia's having trouble back into the.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha, Lucia.
Hey, Miss
I'm back.
Lucia.
Sorry about that. I'm on my iPad now. My computer died.
You didn't expect us to go into a half-hour rant about the directions of the select board. So Lisa, one of the things that we're asking about the budget specifically was, we all feel that mail-in elections, while we understand it's been COVID, we don't think it's going away. And elections are becoming more and more complicated. So not only is there printing costs, not only is there mailing costs, not only is there more need for more people, but this budget doesn't reflect that.
This budget is not reflecting any of the changes. Nothing's been mandated yet, so I haven't accounted for anything.
Would you agree with us that that's probably not going away?
It's not going to go away. I think it's going to turn out to be what we saw last year is going to turn out to be a permanent thing. I think we're going to see in-person early voting. Well, that's standard with all state elections anyway. We're going to see vote by mail, and we're going to see all that. The expenses, if the towns are going to take the expenses, they're going to skyrocket. The state pays for the state elections, but the town, I don't know.
I don't know why, if the state does pass that legislation, why that isn't considered an unfunded mandate on the towns and the state should pay for it.
Well, they should, but are they going to?
I'm laughing. It wouldn't be the first time a state passed regulations and mandated towns to do it without funding it. But I don't know about my other members. Personally, I think we should reflect that in the 22 budget, right? It's easier. I don't want to present a budget that we don't think is going to be real.
Well, the only election we're going to see on next year's budget is a town election. The state elections only fall on the even numbers. So the only election we're going to see next year for fiscal 22 is the town election. That's the only one.
We won't see the mid-year election? We won't see midterms?
No, no, odd year.
Only on even years.
So,
Yeah, but isn't this budget through June of 2022?
yeah, but that 2022, you're not going to see those 2022
November.
elections, state elections till September and November.
Oh, gotcha.
But
So
we'll
that's
see
what's following next.
a
I'm sorry,
governor,
Mike.
right? We would see a governor's race, right? Or no, that would be November.
That'd be the end
That'd
of
be
the year. also.
September, isn't that?
Okay, all right.
So if I can ask, Lucia, I circled a couple things on the screen. Like I noticed data processing costs went down. I was just trying to understand with the expense over what was budgeted last year already, what is entailed in that and why did you reduce it?
Well, I reduced it. If you look what the presidential election did to us, and this was not like I could have budgeted. We didn't know anything about this that was going to happen, and for the help and for all the costs and the equipment and supplies that we had to get, it just went way over, and
Okay.
we couldn't help it.
Okay. And then town election costs, so that you cut that in half, right? And we can potentially have 2 next year. So does that $7,000 cover 2?
Was it potentially 2 next year?
Well, we would have the normal April election, And then if the charter passes, there's another election, right, after
That'll be
June.
this June.
That'll be this fiscal
June.
year.
That's
I thought it
during
was after June. No, it is in June?
the charter, I believe, isn't it, Michael, Mike in June?
Yeah, it
It's
would
gonna be by July 1st, I believe.
Okay, okay. Then disregard my question.
Sorry?
I said then disregard my question.
Okay.
Well, I would agree with Michael, to make a provision for one town election with mail-in voting, in the base budget. And then it's easier to take it out than put it in later.
Okay, I'll recalculate that and put it in.
Lucia, is there anything in this budget that we understand that the town lives in constraints and all that, but you say for your department, if you could change or do something within your department that isn't on this budget, have you thought about that? What is the one thing how you would improve your
Well,
department?
I think what's coming, and it's inevitable, I'm sure, is that I would love to have another body in there, get a part-timer in there. I think we're definitely going, I don't think, I know, we're gonna need more help in time when all this starts.
Didn't we approve a part-time position for you?
It was taken out of my budget last year, the part-time position.
Okay. So this budget would go into effect in July of
This year.
July of this year. That always messes me up. I apologize.
So with the amount of work that happened this year, did we have any sort of consulting fees to bring somebody in on a temporary basis to help with these elections?
I brought in my election workers. I brought in some residents that came in. I brought in people, residents and election officials. I had one girl who used to work as a part-timer in our department, Donna Fong, who's excellent. I brought her in and she worked a few days a week until the election was over.
Okay. That's good to know, because I'm just thinking about, just the elections alone, what volume that triggered.
Not that we're gonna move ahead and add it, but what was the number last year for that part-time individual? Do you recall, Mike?
I don't.
When the part-timer was on the budget,
Yes.
it was $18.95 per hour.
Okay, and what is it 20 hours what you usually predict?
It was 18.
18 hours a week?
Yes. Doesn't it, Mike, was that what the part-timers are, 18?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike, do you usually add fringe to that, like 20% fringe? Is that the calculation that you usually add to that?
18 hours, they're
We
not
include that.
entitled to any benefits.
Okay.
So that would be just about 18 grand for a year.
I like 18 and 18.
Yeah.
17,737 and 20 cents to be exact, but I was rounding it up for.
It sounds better, go 18 and 18.
Yes.
Mike, I know that you're probably, you're seeing this budget and so forth. I know you're thinking of it, obviously financial constraints that we're in. Are we at a point where I know this is Lucia's department and Lucia probably would like to see it, but we're living in those times. Do you think this is critical at this point, Mike, or what's your observation as senior manager?
Well, as I keep saying, everything depends on our revenue. Before we start adding people, we just want to make sure that we can keep what we have before we start adding people.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think, Mr. Chair, may I speak?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Lucia.
I feel we can get along with the next, I think we'll be fine with the next budget because we're not looking at any state elections unless there comes a special. for some reason. I think Brooke and I, we can handle it for the next year. But when it comes to the mail-ins and that, I might have to get one or two people in, poll workers, election workers in to give us a hand. Because at some point it may be, I mean, we were working 7 days a week. And that's fine if we have to, and that was with all the extra help we had coming in. But I can't see a part-timer yet in this budget because we're not facing anything as yet. So I think we're good for the next year.
The next,
I appreciate it.
until the next election regulation comes along, Lucia.
Oh, shush.
I think we have to be cognizant, right? Like people working 7 days a week is not sustainable, and that that's something that just we need to be cognizant of. I had another point and I lost it.
We need to consider the well-being and health of our staff.
Yeah, I mean, burnout's real, and the last thing we want is for good employees to leave because of that. Lucia, are there any, with the mail-ins, are there any opportunities to leverage suppliers or third-party services to automate some of that?
Well, I think what I mentioned it to Mike today. I figured out we've got, if it's mail-ins, what they're saying they want to get through is that we mail an early ballot application to every registered voter, and we have over 14,000 registered voters. So I said to Mike today, if my department mails out to every single registered voter at 51 cents per application, then you're looking at over $7,000 in postage costs. So I think we're better off to go to the printer and let him print out all the applications, and they'll mail them out. And I think we'll probably look along. The census was almost $4,000. So I think we're probably looking about at a cost like that. Maybe more now that I think about it, with over 14,000 registered voters. But with a bulk like that, they'd be able to get a discounted rate. And our copy machines, I don't think can handle 14,000 copies either.
Right. Are there opportunities to do something where people can register online first?
Oh, yeah.
And then you take...
Mass.gov. They can also, it's on my page on the website, they can download. I've got the absentee ballot out there, but if it comes mandated with the early voting application, they're going to provide us with the applications. And I'll just put one out there that they can download and drop in the ballot box outside Town Hall, fill out and drop in the box.
Lucia, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I? Lucia, I don't see any investments in any technology, not that you can see into a crystal ball, but is there anything that you see right now that besides I see data processing costs, so assuming that's where the technology might fall.
That's the data processing costs are the costs for the cards for the ballot machines. They program the cards for the elections and the automatic machine. So those are the costs. Those are for the data cards for the elections.
So inside of this, where are we in the life of our election machines? Where are we with future data, whatever figures my cat is going crazy right now, so I apologize.
We have, I got a grant for $7,200 last year, and it had to be obviously spent on equipment and all that. I bought another ballot machine, another ballot box, and I bought printers for the poll pads. So, I mean, as far as all the equipment, machinery, we're as up to date as we can be as of right now. We have the best, and everything that's certified we have.
All right. Any other questions for Lucia? All right. Seeing none, Lucia, thank you so much
Thank you. Sorry I was late.
Much better on your iPad, Lisa.
I'm sorry?
You look much better on your iPad.
Oh, shush.
Hey, Mike, can I ask before we move off of this budget? I remember our discussion last year when we were at the Norton Media Center, and we were talking about the salary ranges and where the town clerk was in respect to the rest of the state. Did we make any adjustments last year to balance that appropriately?
I think just I don't remember off the top of my head what the increase was last year. I'll have to look at that.
Okay, can you do just a comp to see if we're still at the low end, like I don't know, are we the lowest paid or the second to lowest paid?
Yes.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, is there anything that you'd want to see in this that get or anything?
Nope.
I know it's early on.
She's just done a great job with it, and she runs a great department, and we're very lucky to have the volunteers that she gets that work with her, and her poll workers that work with her. They put in a lot of time, and Brooks worked out well also.
Good team.
I am fortunate.
Yeah, just
We are
for the record.
fortunate.
If we did hire a part-time person, I'm not sure if legally we'd be able to fit them into the clerk office, space-wise. Legally, it's too small. If we put a dog in there, I know Peter would be protesting outside the town hall.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucia.
Who's next up in the crucible?
Next up is data processing.
Okay.
And in the data processing budget, we have part-time wages, $29,741. And then below that, we have the expenses. Purchases of services remains the same. The radio repair remains the same, $25,000. Equipment repair and maintenance, slight increase of $400. The next line, the RMS software licensing is reduced from $32,000 to $3,000 because SEMREC, the regional dispatch, has taken over the police portion of that. So the $3,000 that's remaining, it's just on the fire side, so it's for maintenance of their old records on the system. Professional services is up about $18,000, and the reason for a lot of that, we have some new programs, obviously Zoom at $780, Hello Sign at $2,880. Local Intel, that's $3,400. That's a new program that Planning Economic Development has to help market projects in the town. Target Sense, this is an increase of $3,136. The police department's been on that, trying to work on online scheduling and timesheets. And the fire department is now going on that to work on that. And then Indemnia is a new software that the police have, and that's $3,500. So that's about $13,696 there, the major items, and then some increases in licenses and fees. Then down below, telephone communications, that's all our landlines, all our internet for the entire town.
Why is that one close to being doubled, Mike?
I know one of the main things, and Charlene's on and can explain more. I know one of the main things is that we were on basic internet and we switched to high speed this year. We did, we were having problems with our internet, and finally we contacted Comcast, and they're like, well, you do know you're on the basic. And so we upgraded. And
Make an AOL sound when you're getting on the
I was
internet.
thinking the same thing.
What identified it or? Mike, where did the servers, I know we had that server problem this past year. Did that hit this budget I mean, as an expenditure, and is that fall into here or no? Or does that fall into the police department?
no, any work on new upgrades or
Right.
something?
I know we had to do service on the servers, but I know there was some discussion about moving us to some cloud, but also some servers need to be replaced over at the town hall. Some of the servers, when we need to be replaced. Is there a line item here? But my long story short, what I'm asking is, I know we're not necessarily, what are we planning? We are going to have some kind of IT upgrades that are gonna have to happen this year. Where are they falling in that?
In the capital budget.
In the capital budget, okay.
Where's the operational expense for the vendor who's supposed to be protecting us from all these bad things happening? Is that in professional services?
Yes.
What's that, and is that increasing?
Those professional services have remained the same for the last 12 years without an increase.
With that IT group?
Correct.
Well, that doesn't seem quite right, given the cyber environment. Do you feel that we have adequate coverage, especially with all these new applications and our permitting and things going electronic?
Yes, after we had that close call, and we restored everything, we upgraded from Trend Micro to Cylance, which is a much more intuitive program than we had before. And they're on top of it all the time. We back up every hour on the hour. So we haven't had any further problems since then. And part of that money, where that increase came in, not to the professional services, but to the telephone, was increasing our internet. As Mike said, we were on basic. We went up to a gig, and that also includes all our Comcast, which Comcast is notorious for having price ranges and price increases in December.
Mm-hmm.
And this year they went up about $20 on every single service I had.
Hey, when we actually upgraded to the level of service that we should have been for the internet, did we try to get reimbursement as part of COVID? Because I thought that was an expense when we moved people to remote work environments. That technologies, any sort of hardware that we needed to upgrade, like the VPN connectivity or the bandwidth, I thought that those could be those were reimbursable or covered under the CARES Act.
I know, was it before we had CARES Act funding that we had that attack? I don't remember. Well, it didn't cost us anything.
I'm just wondering, I mean, I know obviously that annual expenses wouldn't be reimbursed, but what we did for last year, would any of that have been, or could it be? I guess, Mike, just a takeaway on that. I remember reading quite a bit on what was eligible for funding, just to ensure people, were staying at home during those orders. And then can I ask, and I might be thinking of a different one. I thought with the SEMRAC, I thought one of these budgets was going to go away and it was going to be absorbed into another one. And for some reason, I thought it was the data processing.
No, that's the 290 you're thinking of. The communications budget.
Okay, thank you.
Was for dispatch. And when he flips it to the next one, you'll see the difference.
Okay, thank you so much.
Charlene, I don't see anything on web upgrades or website upgrades or anything like that. Am I just not seeing it, not knowing it classified differently?
Yeah, there's on the backup material that you have, if you look on page 2 under 5315, there's website redesign.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah.
I'd really like to get that website design done this year. I know it's a tight year, but I think we can fit in the $2,000 that it's gonna cost because we'll spread it out over 3 years. And that website is the original website that we did all those years ago when we first got one. So it really needs to be upgraded.
Is that, Charlene, is that, you know, I asked the question to everyone, if you had to pick one thing of your full scope of responsibility, would that be the one thing that you say, that's the investment that you'd want to see right now?
Yes, that's correct, because it would help improve everybody's, I know, even the Charter Commission, they've been limited on things that they could do with the website just because it's so static and so old. It really does need an upgrade.
And
Is that something we can push out to the schools? I mean, that's what, a lot of the kids are learning, some kind of, web development and things like that. It could be a volunteer project that we could get done. There's a lot of kids that know this stuff.
I think it's the platform we have to pay for those still, Meg.
It is the platform, so 2,000 just for the platform, not for the design.
I don't know about that, but I know that, to her point, it's pretty antiquated. And if you look across towns, you can see the towns, like, it seems like there's a split, half of Massachusetts has upgraded and half have the old system. And I agree we need something. I mean, the town hall's been closed to the public. So the best avenue is the online channels, and it certainly is not a user-friendly interface. But Charlene, can you speak to like how much of that is development versus the actual application or software?
That entire $6,000 that we would budget over the 3 years is for the development. Our platform is the other amount that is a portion of that, and I don't have it right in front of me now. But we pay for annual maintenance, training, and all that. But the $2,000 that I budgeted for this year will get us the full upgrade, and we'll just pay for it over the 3 years.
So so we get the full upgrade this year, but they're gonna finance it over 3 years for us. Is that what I get?
That's correct. That's correct.
And
That's
the
how we did
platform
our original.
I'm so sorry. And the platform that you're talking about that you don't have a price on, is that $100,000? Is that $10,000? Is that several thousand? If you had to give me a range, can you give me a range at least?
I would, off the top of my head, I can't give you that answer. I would have to go back and check what our original pricing was, which was quite a while ago, but I can find that out for you.
And that's the development. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And Charlene, can you look at that? Because I think to Meg's point, we do have an opportunity with the students. And the other thing too, I know that as part of graduation, right, they have to have a certain amount of community hours, which has, been reduced drastically because they can't really do anything in society or in the community. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to help them as well with their development through school.
I can look into that also. I've got to see what the contract says that we have with Civic.
Great, thank you.
How is your hourly breakdown working out, Charlene?
My hourly rate?
Meaning not the hourly rate, meaning are you finding yourself, I know there's an allotment of hours, of what was budgeted, is it going higher or it's lower, or what's the?
Well, right now, Charlene's working more hours because CARES Act is funding it because of all the online work. And then next year, hopefully we're back to normal, and Charlene would be at 960 hours a year.
Mike, do you see that with the IT needs, right? I mean, it's unfortunately COVID's introduced us to a whole world of video conference, more IT demands, more this. Do you see the need of that going up, Mike? Or, I mean, what's your thoughts?
If we have to keep continuing after July 1 with video conferencing and all these, then we'd have to look at some more hours, yes.
Do you think it's better to, do you want to just get, so I'm getting, I mean, there's several ways you can do budgets. I'm one of those things where I go big, you know, but you look like when you budget, you challenge your directors to kind of do a real-time budget. Do you, I mean, I don't see it going away come July. I see it going only increasing. Do you think you should be increasing that, or you want to just do you want to keep it where it is, or are you rather transfer money later?
The reason I'd rather keep it where it is, especially if there's CARES Act funding available, if we budget for it, then we can't use CARES Act funds for it. But if we don't budget for it, and it's in relation to things we have to do because there's still an emergency order out there, then we can use CARES funding for it.
That's why you do this, not me.
Pretty soon we may be back to the in-person meetings pretty soon, right?
I hope, Peter.
Okay, I have a question. Up at the top, the part-time wages, they've actually gone down from this year to next year. Is that reflective of just, Charlene, your hours changing? Doesn't sound like you're working any less.
I think that's reflective that in the FY21 budget where James put in hours using CARES funds. That's why it's 40,805.
So, okay, does that mean that some of these line items as we go through have been bolstered by CARES Act funds as opposed to funded by the town?
Not for the most part. I'll have to check with James on this one.
For me, that really muddies the water. It makes it hard to understand just what the true budget increases are. If they could be highlighted or broken out in some way so that it's clearer.
Jack, to that point though, I mean, I'm looking at previous pre-COVID and they seem to be high, minus the professional services, which we've bolstered. They're pretty, I mean, I don't know.
There was just that one line for part-time wages.
Yeah, that was the only one that I see that.
Yeah, I don't think he did it for any expenses. I'll have to check with them and see if he did it for wages. This would be the only department, I think, that would have that.
Okay.
Mike, is there something that you see in here that you're just saying, is there anything on your wish list in this IT side that you say, I would love to see it, but obviously we're living in this real world of finances. Obviously Charlene's got the website. Is there anything that, because this obviously affects a lot of the things that you do. Is there anything on there that's missing that you really want the select board or the town to really focus and maybe in the future make an investment in?
Not really. I think, Charlene, I think we've done a great job adding the programs that we're adding this year on this with the planning department and economic development. I know other towns have looked at that program and said that it's well done and they like it. And the police have the new program for fingerprinting. You know, I can't think of anything right now that we would want to add.
Anything else for Charlene in data processing?
Jack, I have one more question.
Shoot.
Mike, what is long-term state? So I know you mentioned about like the, you know, the virtual platform with Zoom and things like that. Like, have we, or are we now, like, are people kind of like scheduling, doing their own meetings, running their meetings themselves? Like, have we empowered people to do that? Or is Charlene the one that's setting it all up on behalf of the municipality?
Charlene's pretty much been setting them all up.
Can we build some contingency there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That might help too on, you know, if she keeps out of the office.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure after COVID, Charlene wants nothing to do with Zoom.
Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, the word Zoom ever again.
Prepare it now. There was discussion with Mara Healy about changes to the open meeting law post-pandemic and the increasing the ability of virtual sessions, given the success that different towns have experienced. So I would imagine it's not going away.
I've heard the same thing.
Right? When this pandemic though, we resume the in-person meetings, right?
Hopefully. All right, anything else for Charlene? The only thing I would, this is more just a nerdy thing. So Charlene, I see in here that rule for Adobe Acrobat Pro. I would highly recommend checking out a program called Bluebeam, BLUEBEAM. It's another PDF markup and editor. It is phenomenal. I find it to be much more fully featured than Acrobat, and right about the same cost per license, I think. So for what it's worth. You can do electronic signatures through there too, I think. All right, who do we got next? Communications.
Next is 290 communications. All we have on that for this coming year is the 300,000, which is our assessment to SEMREC. And I just wanted to show you something else on that. Did my screen shift?
It did not.
Still looking at the
Will it make you feel better if I say yes, but it didn't?
Right. Let me do that again. So just to show, there was some discussion on Monday night about SEMREC and going back again 2 years to talk about, well, what did we save? And going to SEMREC, the main thing wasn't to save. The main thing was the state-of-the-art facility and what would benefit from being in such a facility. You know, the estimates of the cost to upgrade our equipment was huge. But anyways, in savings, if you go back to 2018, the last time that we had a full-time director and a full staff, salaries was $622,922. Uniform expense, training, health insurance cost, that software that I talked about before that SEMREC took over. So you're looking at $699,335 of cost. So we're saving almost $400,000, which is very close to back in 2018 when the presentation was made and SEMREC said that we'd save $437,000 just using those expenses. We have about $400,000 savings and cost. So everything is working out well, and I can't say enough about what's going on at the center and the services we're getting. And we may have another community coming into SEMREC, which will then reduce our assessment probably a little bit more. So
Great.
and when we
Was there any capital layout for SEMREC from each of the towns? Was an assessment or anything?
No, all the construction is being funded through the 911 grant program.
Okay.
All right.
I was against it, but you can't argue about the savings, right? Oh.
Next, let's see. We have fire.
Chief Simmons pop on a little while ago.
So let me get the fire budget up.
Are you somewhere else
Dude,
tonight?
I was gonna say, look at you. What are you, on vacation or something? Come on. Get back to the fire station.
So the fire, can you see the fire budget?
Yes.
Okay, so the chief has presented a budget with personal services increasing from $4,018,000 to $4,155,649. And on the expense side, $204,340 to $226,440. And just to give you an idea on some of those expense increases, there's money in there for some training that has to be done by the dive team. That's about $9,000. And in the past, we talked about opening station 1, but there was never any adjustment to the expenses in those previous budgets. So Sean has put in here, in order to open station 1, he's hoping that he's able to get the staff. As you know, there's a shortage of paramedics out there right now, so Sean's working on that. And if the goal is to have the staff so that by December of next year, Station 1 could be open. And so Sean's anticipating $1,000 increase in electricity, $2,500 in natural gas, and then $1,750 in repair and maintenance at the station. Also,
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. Where are you on here? I'm looking for those figures, but I didn't see them.
So that would be on the backup material that is with the budget. You have sheets attached. So if you look at the backup material, that would be on page 9 in the backup material where I was just talking.
Okay.
And also under expenses, under professional services, there's an increase of $8,000 to have an assessment center. This is a requirement under civil service. And the chief is requesting an assessment center for deputy chief's position.
What does that mean in plain English?
An assessment center is, so a certain level of department members will be able to sign up to be part of an assessment center where they'll be evaluated by a team that they'll ask them a series of questions. They'll have to answer, they'll have to do an essay or answer written questions, and that team will make a recommendation on who they feel would be the best person for that position.
And is that just an internal assessment with our department, or is that, okay?
And another item that's in there and that we hope we don't need, but if we are going to continue to have trouble finding paramedics, the next step would be to hire people that are not paramedics, just EMTs, but and then they'd have to go to school to learn to become a paramedic. And Sean had put some money in there to assist in that, and it would be a requirement if we do hire someone that's not a paramedic, that they become a paramedic within a certain amount of time.
Is that under the training item? That's up 34,000?
Yeah, page 10, yep.
Okay.
So, Mike and Sean, can you just address, obviously we see a bump in overtime. I understand that, obviously the staffing issue shortages we've had and trying to qualify individuals. Can you just do me a favor, just to kind of explain how you calculate, how you budget for overtime? I mean, it's one of those things where you're making estimates, so there's not probably an exact science, but could you maybe explain? Because I see that's a big bump from the previous year.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, it's actually down from what we actually requested last year. So from our request last year was, hang on a second, it was about 630. 70,000 of that was actually cut. We didn't go back and ask for money in the fall for that due to the surplus we were going to have in salaries from not being able to hire the 4 replacement positions right away. So, in actuality, it's actually down $4,745 from what we requested last year. And if I actually calculated all the increases from the collective bargaining agreement, that would have went up by, I don't have the exact number, but by over $50,000. So like you said, Mike, it's an estimate. It's what I do is I calculate 100% of what it would cost to fill, person for person for all the time off they would take off. Try to estimate for weather and fires where we have to call personnel back in, and then actually deduct from that based on having extra people on duty that we can drop down by. So when we actually get those extra 4 positions, that'll help us out in that area. But we're not going to actually be able to have those positions probably, like Mike was saying earlier, probably until December is what I'm hoping optimistically anyway.
So if you had full staff and just the requirements, you would have been over, you probably would have been over this, you would be right around this number for this year. And maybe even over this number, the way it looks like it would be projecting, correct? Right. Okay.
Chief, when you say December, is that whether it's paramedic level or EMT?
So I'm hoping I know I've talked to you guys about this before, so I should be redundant, but it's just such a challenge getting people in. The civil service list was supposed to be out in December, then it went to mid-February, and now it's into mid-March from when they're projecting that it'll come out. So on a good note, I did just hear that their exam scores came out for the candidates that took the test. So that's a positive thing. From that point moving forward, they actually have to certify the results, gives them the opportunity to challenge questions and so forth. So I guess to answer your question is once we hire those people, I'm hoping, within the next couple of months, we can actually get them hired. We have to do the call for the list, then we have to set up interviews, then we have to make the job offers, then they have to go to a medical exam, and then they have to go to a physical agility test. And then after all that stuff, we can actually bring them on. So, and then we can't actually request the academy date until we have all that stuff in place too. So that's kind of like the wild card right there. So to see when we can actually get them into the academy. Academy is about just shy of 3 months. So that's what I'm hoping we can get them all in and get them, through the academy and hopefully in service, I'm hoping around December or so.
How many municipalities across the state are still in like the civil service program?
That's a good question. I don't have the exact number for you. I can tell you that the number is actually dropping though. More and more departments are actually getting out of civil service. But I don't have the exact number for you, how many of them are actually in the system or not, but.
Is there any other hindrance to actually hiring people than this process, excluding pay?
Yeah, right. No, I mean, that's the biggest obstacle, and the kind of the spot that we're in right now has just been, not only is that we're at the backside of that civil, because every 2 years they do the civil service exam.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, with COVID, obviously that screwed everything up. So it would already probably be difficult without COVID, and that just added a whole nother level of difficulty onto it. You know, to be honest with you. So yeah, that's the process. We can't go out and recruit people or anything. You know, headhunt people or anything like that. We're tied to that list. So.
Were there?
I'm sorry, Renee.
Sorry, Michael. Just
I investigated this with both Chief Clark and Chief Simmons a little bit, and to remove, if we decided to get away from it, or if the town decided to get away from it, it would have to be taken out the way it went in, and it was first, I believe it was 1956 when it was first voted on by the town. And it's funny, Chief Clark had the original ballot thing that he pulled out of his folder, which was pretty impressive, but it's something that the town would need to vote on to remove from the civil service.
So are you recommending that the board consider an article in a special town meeting warrant for this?
I think for this meeting at this town warrant, right now, I think it would be rushed if we went down that road, but I think it's something that in the near future, we have to have the select board needs to have a serious conversation, because it also needs a discussion that has to go with Chief Simmons' firefighters as well. There's a lot of union implications that come with it. And I've gotten the sense from individuals at the FOP that they wouldn't be as bothered about reaching out to the firefighters. They don't necessarily seem in favor of leaving the civil service exams. But again, that's up to the townspeople. But I think it's a conversation that we have to think what's best for the town. And right now, it seems to be hurting us. So.
Well, I think since I've been here, it's like we had open positions, but we just can't fill them. Right, which is, I mean, that to me is a systemic problem. I was gonna.
By the way, Sean is doing a great straight face on this matter. It's very impressive, Sean.
I was gonna ask too, in the medical community, right? Like some students who were in nursing or whatever subjects they were studying, they were kind of promoted up to help in the pandemic. Was anything like that available for the fire department?
No, not really. The only one thing I did see a while back was the ability to bring people back from retirement, which really wasn't a viable option for us. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Meg, that was very freaky. You coughed and it echoed, and it was like this very daunting cough, if you will. Your budget, though, I mean, I want to just commend you. A lot of people, a lot of chiefs have talked about and made efforts to open Station 1, and it never really operationally made it into the budget. When we talk about setting priorities for the town, this is one of the things that coming in before could be a selectman that I wanted to see happen is Chartley as a serious consideration. And with Chief Simmons getting the grants, I'm thinking that may make it feasible for happening. I know we're not there yet, but I wanted to commend you on making the commitment in the budget, and hopefully the finance committee and the finance committee in the town agree.
Well said, Michael. Any other questions for Chief Simmons?
Also 40 years ago, there's an article that I have in the Sun Chronicle, and it's Norton Fire Chief George Burgess, back in time on November 14, 1988, says that through the budget restrictions and heavy use of sick leave, he had to forced to close the Chartley Fire Station and initiated a no overtime policy.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So Michael asked his standard question, I'll ask mine. Any additional headcount accounted for in this budget?
No. Nope.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir. Heard somebody talking.
The next budget's emergency medical. And the main item that increased in this budget is the training. Chief can talk about that again, and some additional equipment. And this emergency medical, this is for the ambulance service.
So, yeah, I mean, the emergency medical, I think you'd already mentioned it, Mike, there's a contingency to send 2 people to paramedic school in there. Just to kind of put it on paper, just so you're all aware of it. Just for some reason, if we can't actually get paramedics like Mike was talking about earlier, it gives us a little bit to send at least 2 of them to school. So that's where you see that big increase in the training for. So after that, you'll see an additional equipment request for an increase of $2,000, and that's for us to be able to purchase an ultrasound machine for the ambulance, to at least purchase one of them for our primary ambulance.
I'm sorry, what did you say that was?
For an ultrasound machine.
Ultrasound, okay.
That's for the 2,000 request. Yep.
Thank you. Are there implications in sending people to get their paramedic certification and backfilling, like overtime implications?
Possibly. It would depend. My thought would be to send them to the fire academy first, so that way we can actually count them towards manpower, because we can't technically count people towards manpower until they're through the fire academy. So yeah, at that point they would be on shift, and there would be the potential that we may have to cover their shift if they're at school for the evening or for the day or something like that. So I think we could absorb that, especially where we're going up, adding the extra 4 people with a safer grant. So I didn't really calculate, a whole lot to compensate for that. So.
Are the grant people hired the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anything else for Chief Simmons on emergency medical? All right, on to the next one.
Emergency planning, and the chief has a slight increase of $300 in the emergency planning budget.
It's the straw that breaks the camel's back right there.
We can't do it.
He's buying Ray a new vest or something.
They do a great job. That increase just reflects inflation and so forth to buy stuff, really.
Yeah. Right. So Chief Simmons, what in the budget is there, if you're planning here, I remember I was on the call Monday when you said the ladder is coming upon us. What other things, if you could add something to your department that you're missing now that you'd want to plan for it in the future or add it to this budget? Is there a wish list?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So like you mentioned our ladder truck, I want to say it's 2025 is coming due for, technically coming due in our capital plan for a replacement. Or we could choose to refurbish it. To refurbish it, I'm going to take a guess and say probably about $450,000 maybe. To buy a new ladder truck, you're looking at probably $1.3 million. So that's a big ticket item. Our air packs, our self-contained breathing apparatus, is a few years out from needing to be replaced. That's probably about a $450,000 item there. We plan to go for a grant for that. Obviously all those grants are competitive, so I can't guarantee you that we're going to get it. Our intention is to put in for that grant next year to give us a couple of years in case for some reason we don't get it. We can put in for it the following year. And also our portable radios are coming due for replacement as well. And we're actually in the process of a regional grant right now. That's already, actually that just got submitted today. We just submitted that today. The grant for portable radios, and that's, it's close to $400,000 for the radios as well. And talking with SEMREC, normally when we do these grants, it's usually either a 5 to 10% contribution from the municipality that's required. and Semrick has actually agreed to pay for that contribution if we do get the grant award, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Have we thought about regionalizing the ladder boom, the ladder truck?
We've thought about it, but we haven't really got much further than that, to be honest with you.
Because last time, minus the big fire we had this year, has it left the, minus then, what other call has it left the station?
It goes, any fire call, it goes out on the station. So what we'll do is we'll pull people off the ambulance and take the ladder truck. If we have a call, it could be a legitimate, structure fire. So it does go out. It doesn't go out that, as often as we would like it to be honest with you. Sometimes we primarily have to call people in off duty to be able to take it, or, rely on a mutual aid, company to come in.
If we were going to try to regionalize it, when do those conversations have to start? I would just imagine if 2025 is when it expires, they have to start now, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of a toss-up. If we did decide to do like an automatic aid through regionalization for something like that, it would obviously take longer for the ladder truck to get there. So that's kind of like a risk versus benefit type of thing that we would all have to talk about,
Yeah.
It also could have some impacts on our ISO rating, which is an insurance safety organization. Same thing like Station 1, not having Station 1 open. Usually every 3 to 4 years, they reevaluate our ISO rating. And just ironically, the last time they came and did it, we had the station open for a few months, and we didn't drop down in that rating. So, not having a ladder truck in service, not having that station open, that'll all affect that type of stuff, down the road too. So.
All right. Okay.
All right, anything else on this topic other than, I guess, what color is Ray's new vest?
Go with a nice lime green on that one.
And do the new hires know why fire trucks are red yet? I'm going to keep asking the question until I get a correct answer.
The first quiz, I can't give the answer on the,
Fair enough.
Do it through the chat.
Is it so they can sneak up on the fire without it noticing?
Right.
Yes, it's a better rhyme with it though. I'll talk to it offline, Jack.
Okay. That one went right over my head and into the Northern Lights. All right, unless there's anything else for Chief Simmons, we'll cut him loose and we'll head to our final department for the evening.
So wait, are we really at the end?
Yeah. Poor Sharon, when she got on, she probably thought, well, this is a good time. They must be on the
No, you should tell everyone that you'll text them, like, when they're ready, and then.
I feel like everyone would know that we don't do anything quickly around here.
So
We're thorough, Jack.
This is 6:30 recreation, and on the budget that you see right here, the salary personnel services is a 5% increase from 25,116 to 26,377, and the charges and expenditures are level.
I'm trying to open it.
Am I sharing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so small that I can't see it.
On your iPhone, Brad?
Thank you.
You mean the number, right, Brad?
Yeah, I can see the screen, but the numbers on the paper that you're sharing, now it's legible.
All right.
Before I have to go get my magnifying glass.
All right, welcome, Sharon.
Sorry, Jack, what did you say?
I said welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Get to end the night with me.
Always a pleasure. Any questions on this department?
So Mike, I have the same question as I did for the town clerk, because I thought we talked about this last year too. And I don't see the adjustment in the wages either. I thought that this was one of the ones that there was a comparison and determined to be incredibly low when looking across the state.
I don't remember that. I just remember that when we were doing Senate A negotiations. I don't remember that when we were doing town clerk or this. I just remember that the board had requested that we put in the budget money to do a study, a salary wage study.
That's right. This was the one that we didn't want to move forward with because we wanted the comp study, right?
Right.
So did we account for doing a comp study?
No, because our budget was already done, so that would be in the budget coming up.
Okay.
FY22.
And do we have any way of looking? I mean, it's public information, right? Like, can you do a quick scan just to see how far down we are? And
I can. I'll get you that.
okay.
So it looks to me like it's going up $1,300, which seems pretty minimal in the scheme of things. All right, apparently we blew all our talking juice.
I was doing math, but I mean, I remember we had.
It's pretty flat.
Yeah, we had significant conversation about that whole grouping of salaries, and that we felt that the range wasn't appropriate, and we were probably low. Yeah, this is, to Meg's point, it's flat. I mean, there's not much there.
So can I ask the question, can someone explain to me the difference? And does every department have a revolving account? And that, I guess that's what I'm a little, I'm looking at the second page that was given to me. So we pay salaries out of the revolving account, is that correct?
Not yet.
We pay lifeguard salaries out of the revolving account.
Okay. So that's, Sharon, that's what they were speaking of on there. So while it's flat, there's going to be an additional payment. Is that correct?
Yes, well, there's another page, as you mentioned, that in an attempt to increase my wages to a living level, more in line with other town employees, there's a proposal to pay a portion of my salary from the revolving account, which is not something the town has done thus far, to my knowledge, for Parks and Rec. But it's pretty customary for other towns. They do this. It's pretty common practice. So there's a proposal to do an additional increase, not from the town budget, but from the revolving account, which already has the funds in it.
And it's just so you know, Sharon, I spoke with Mike about this today, because obviously, for some of my colleagues on the select board, I had the opportunity to be on the finance committee's meeting. You know, one of the things, just to both you, Mike, and I'm not saying that this is there's one of the things that when we're looking at people's raises or this, I would rather it start with the select board. And I understand that you and Mike present a budget and you could do this. I just think it puts the finance committee in a weird situation when it looks like almost that we're going to them for a raise. And I understand that it's this. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but I don't think the finance committee, that while they approve the expenditures, I think I think it's bad. I think it's bad optics that it's almost like it's, because they're gonna look at us for direction on this, right? And I'm not saying that that you don't deserve this or anything like that, but I don't think it should start. We're at the finance committee. I think I don't think they're, and I would say this is just with all budgets or anybody else, if you guys are gonna just propose this and it's a substantial raise, I don't speak for the select board, but I'm not sure how you guys feel. It really was kind of a real dragged out conversation, and it was an awkward conversation at finance committee.
So I'm going to jump in on that one because I think that speaks more to the process and the timing of the process, like we talked about a while ago. And if I were presenting a budget, I would present everything that I was asking for the first time that it came up, because I think then if you don't, you're accused of hiding something or not being transparent. What should have happened is that we should have been the first stop on the train. So I think it's more of a timing and a process issue between us and FinCom than anything else. But I agree with you generally, Michael, that we should be involved in that because it does put FinCom in an odd spot. But it's I would call that a necessary evil of the way things are scheduled. If that tracks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you walk through, so half of it will be paid out of the town budget and then the other portion will be paid out of the revolving account? That's how it's going to be proposed?
So the proposal is to do the 5% increase out of the town budget and then to do an additional $6 an hour out of the revolving account. With an additional 3 hours per week, which would bring me to 28 hours per week. Right now I do 25. Mike had spoken with another town manager who had mentioned that and Mike, you can use the right terminology here, but that somehow the benefits would be affected as well if the salary were to increase.
Yeah, so whatever percentage of the revolving fund is used to cover salary, the same amount has to be used to cover any benefits, the same percentage.
And Mike, what were the limitations? At town meeting, we passed limitations of highs and lows. This falls within that, or does this fall outside of that?
Well, the wage and salary plan approved at town meeting. Let me see. So for Parks and Recreation, the range was 2029 to 2237.
Say that again, Mike?
$20.29 an hour to $22.37 an hour.
That was what FinCom initially approved and what was pushed forward at town meeting, you said?
Yeah, was that October or June?
And where are we falling in that right now?
So,
What?
The 20.
Before or after this proposal?
After, first. I know we're below. I think I actually have that on my sticky from months ago when we talked about this.
With the additional $6 coming out of revolving, it would bring it to 26.29.
No, not out of just the salary line item, not out of the revolving.
Out of the salary.
2029.
2029.
Yeah, the very bottom of the range.
So
Right.
that range, let me ask you a question. Does the revolving exclude that range? Like, does that keep it, or no? It typically is right now, that's what that position is, all in whatever count we pull it from, correct?
Right.
I just wish that this hadn't gone through. I wish that we had adjusted it before town meeting, certainly.
So,
So Mike, what are your thoughts on this? So you had a conversation with another town manager on this process. It's done locally and it's done for that purpose. Like what's your opinion?
Right now, I'm getting from various towns, I'm getting information on salaries and hours. And so then I'll bring that to you so you can see a comparison and make a decision on that.
Okay. How do we fare on the other items too, like a town to town comparison? Like I see on here that we have a lot of like operational stuff, but like.
Well, the history in Norton has been that the main goal of recreation was to keep the pool open. And the programs that were run in the off season of the pool were to raise money for the revolving account to help pay for the expenses to keep the pool open. So it's been decades since Norton had a recreation program. I mean, they used to have a recreation program that did a lot more, ski trips and all year long events, programs all year long, summer camps and things like that. But ever since 2008, when we started having just volunteers, and then we started building the program back up again a few years ago. Same with, with the COA. The COA was eliminated and it was all volunteers, and we're able to get a director back. And then we were able to increase the hours gradually. And then we're able to get staff. So it's kind of in the same situation here where gradually we're trying to build the program back to where it was. So it's essentially we need to commit to say this is something that we want to do for the town. Right. And the cost that we see on there for electricity and water and sewer, that's all related to the pool, and then like the adjacent, or it's not adjacent, but that like the restroom area and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
It's takes a lot of electricity to run that pool.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Do we have opportunities for solar out there, Mike?
I don't know if there's that much room for solar, but we could look at that.
So Mike, I guess the $1 million question I have is, what I don't like is obviously the revolving account side of it. I just, right, because then it's like, okay, it's when we look at line item budgets, but this is I don't want to say grossly, but it looks grossly underpaid individual, and it looks like it's small. Even if we go to the top of the scale and then work on trying to change it. What was the scale? What was the top of the scale? 23 what?
2237.
22. That was 23.
So,
and also the Norton Teen Center was operated by the Parks and Recreation Department, which opened in March of 1979, closest stores began on March 1st, 1981 due to a job vacancy and poor turnout.
The top is 2250 actually, Mike.
Okay.
1914 to 2250.
So, yeah, I think they're trying to think of arranging my thoughts here. First and foremost, I think that we need to do something with the salary level for this position to create a better sense of parity amongst the various department heads in town. Doesn't need to be it's not everything at the same level, but it needs to be closer than what it is now. I think Sharon used the word livable wage, and I agree that what this is not a livable wage in this day and age. I would further suggest that the position be increased in hours as well. If, for example, we went with that 26-29 at 32 hours, that would be an $18,000 increase over the FY21 budget. I know things are tight, but I think seeing what the Recreation Department has been able to do on 25 hours a week and how it's been grown and cultivated its own sense of identity, and especially during the pandemic and finding ways to bring people together. For me, it's really shown the importance of this type of stuff. I know it tends to get glossed over a lot. It's probably the smallest departmental budget that we have at $43,927, and gets scrutinized far more than larger budgets, I would say, based on past experience. I mean, I think we look at this in a much bigger way to see what we can do this year to bring that up to a better level, both in terms of staffing hours and salary. Again, that's my 2 cents. I'd be willing to work with you guys to find where we can get that 18 grand to bring this up at least to a better level. And maybe not 32, maybe it's 35 or 40, or I don't know. Because Sharon, when's the last time you worked only 25 hours a week?
Probably my first week.
Yeah. So that goes back to the earlier thing with when Renee was talking about Lucia in the town clerk's office. We need to take care of our people. It goes both ways. Our town employees take care of us, and the social contractors, we need to do right by them as well. And right now, I don't feel that Parks and Rec is being properly taken care of.
And Jack, I mean, kind of back to the town clerk, right? Like that whole bucket of group, like we didn't feel comfortable with where those ranges were, right? And that's why we wanted to take a step back, look at it appropriately, and do it right the first time. And I gotta say, I mean, when I think about this, and obviously, we're in a pandemic, money's down, but when I think about this particular program, and I think about things like the COA, like as the environment starts to get safer, I mean, the community has been like an isolated community for so long that these are the programs that I think we need to support, right? So because when we can come out of the woodwork again, like we want Sharon to be there, like organizing events where people can safely get together and for all ages, and same thing from Beth's side. And so I think we have to consider that, because we are in a very different place now, as a community than we were obviously a year and a half ago.
If I could just throw in a couple cents, I have no problem paying the higher salary, and I have no problem taking some of it out of the revolving account. The only problem I have is the fact that we're getting it through the back door like this, like where we were in charge of negotiating a contract. I think it should have come through us first instead of us getting it secondhand. And I mean, I would have gladly gone along with this, especially where it's not going to be a unique situation to Norton. Mr. Eunice has found that other communities do things similar to this. And I mean, while it's maybe not salaries, with the fire, we take money from the ambulance account I'm sure in some extent, it doesn't say exactly, but I'm sure that some of the money that we charge for ambulance fees, while it might not be penny for penny, comes from some of those ambulance fees, which are similar to these fees. So, I mean, I think worrying about where the money's coming from is less important than the fact that we weren't in the loop to make this proposal.
Yeah, and I agree with you too, Brad, about I would feel more comfortable as the salary, adjusting the salary line item and supplementing less with the revolving account. But also I'm open to doing that because of the position that we're in. And I'll go back to, right, this is this position is focused on the community, and one of the things that the Hicks Fund is about is the community, and so just keep that in the back of your mind.
I would agree with you, and I think I think my statements on the front were about that. It was, I want to see it, I don't want to see salaries or that buried in a, and not saying it's illegal or anything, and this might be common practice other places. Norton really looks at, the salary line when we go to town meetings and so forth. I mean, the 18,630 is less than it's 0.0003% of the $60 million budget that the town presents. That would be the difference that we would be paying it. I guess one of the questions I have to ask, Mike, is there, I know we just voted this at the last spring meeting, adjusting the salary range. That was part of a contract, correct? And is that, we locked into that range? Can that range be changed through a vote or not?
It can be changed by a future town meeting.
Okay.
An amendment to the wage and salary plan.
Okay, and this budget takes effect in July, right? And there would be no future town meeting before July.
So what we could do at the same time,
You could do,
the 8th, right, as part of the special.
exactly.
Right, the thing is though, is how much time do we have to do, again, can we do a fair compensation study so that we have, I think we made our voices known at the town meeting about the fact that we wanted more investigation on this. So do we have time between now and March or April to get that detail and make some fair decisions? Mike?
Probably not.
Where's your optimism?
Because my thing is that I would think you'd want to have someone do a professional study. And you'd have to appropriate the money at the May town meeting. So then you'd hire someone after July 1, and maybe you could come back in October and amend.
So
Mike, give me a proposal. I'm sorry, Jack.
Yeah, no, I think we're going down the same path. I mean, I don't think we need a consultant to come in and make a few phone calls to find out what area Parks and Rec directors are making. The group did a phenomenal job pulling together the initial batch. I would encourage them to go back and do it again with the different set of communities that we suggested.
I can do that. The problem you're gonna have is you've got one town that has a recreation director that makes $100-something thousand a year, and then why? Well, because that person also runs the golf course. You have another town where the recreation director is also the highway administrative assistant. So we're gonna have to go and find towns that are similar. And your suggestion to have a complete wage and salary study, I think this is maybe a conversation we should have offline, because once you start adjusting one salary, you've got other people that are going to say, well, I do this and my job is as important as that job. How come that person is going up so much and I'm not? So, it's not.
Right, and which is why we really want that comp study on the entire, the entire personnel in that bracket.
Mike, Renee, I'm sorry, I was waiting for you after Jack, I apologize. Mike, is there a proposal that, I understand the comp study and I understand that, and I understand we're up against a special town meeting. What would your proposal be to kind of close the gap here? Because is there a proposal to close the gap here, even if it's for this fiscal year?
Well, I haven't really even looked at it yet, obviously, because I haven't even received all the budgets yet. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, do we have any, so we've talked about the town clerk position, we've talked about this position. I don't remember if conservation was in that one. That may have been a different one. But like, do we have any other positions where we have felt for some time that the salary range was lower than what we would like? And I ask that only because, like, can we do, can you have a reach out to other town managers and administrators just to get some information? I know it's difficult because it may not be apples to apples, but if we can get it close to that, just to inform us at least, like, let's figure out what we could do on an interim perspective, and then let's make sure that in the budget, we're accounting for an actual professional survey to be done, right? And that would just have to be in the fall.
Right, no, I can get you what I can, and you'll see. I'm sure you'll probably see almost every position is probably lower, but you'll see when we'll do that.
And I know we can't solve them all at one time, but if we can chip away at the lowest, right? And maybe overall that's one of our long-term priorities is to start being competitive and, keep people that we want to keep. I know that means we have to increase our budget, right? And hopefully some of the industry we're bringing in will help us do that. But.
So let me ask a question, Mike. The way that this budget's proposed, it wouldn't even pass the mustard of town meeting anyways? Or would it?
Well, it would only, right now, according to the wage and salary plan, the highest you could go on Parks and Recreation would be $22.50 an hour.
Okay. I would, this is what I would, I don't think we're there, but what I would say is, because we can't get past the $22.50 an hour until the study. What I would do is recommend proposing this budget to reflect the $22.50 an hour, and then up the hours if that's still feasible. But that just doing that doesn't diminish the need for the study, and doesn't diminish the need to hold the special meeting. I think those are things that need to be done, but for budgeting purposes, I think that we should reflect what we take us to the max until we can actually go beyond the max. I just throw out there to the rest of the committee.
I think that's
the rest of the board.
Do with the constraints that we have, and then work to raise that $22.50. Whether it's a formal and informal study, I think we need to start making a bigger move here. And again, it's about the position. It's not the person. No offense, Sharon, but right. I think the position is underpaid.
I agree with you. I think the hours also, if we're open to more hours too, I think we should up the hours and go within the constraints we have, because what I would hate to see us do is not budget to what we could do, and then it just gets scrapped and just stays the same. I don't think that gives us, when we talk about us setting priorities, I think that diminishes what we want. I mean, we have to, hopefully I'm explaining what I mean. I really want to go with Sharon. I agree with you. I think you're worth the 26, 29, but right now we're not even allowed to that. And I don't want to see you miss out. I don't want you to see you stay at the $19 because we couldn't get you to the 26. Am I totally off base here, Jack, or any of the other board members?
Scarily enough, I'm following your logic.
Wait, Brad's still trying to do the math. He's like carrying the one dividing by.
I think our long-term goal.
Personally,
go ahead, Brad.
Okay. Personally, I think to make a unilateral change in this one position with other positions that we negotiated in the same contract would be inappropriate for us right now. I think while we want to make the change, we think it's needed. I think we have to go with the wage study that you had proposed. And I think to make a unilateral move at this point, while it's what we want to do, I don't think it's fair to the other members of the negotiating group that we negotiated that contract with.
Yeah, no, and that's the point of my question to Mike about like who else was in that group that we identified as being low, that within the salary range that was approved, can we make those changes, right? Again, I mean, I'm with you on you know, you can't pick out one, but if we start to identify buckets and we can move the buckets ahead, that's going to help us. And it's all subject to what kind of money do we have, right? So.
Right.
Mike, do you think that you'll have information?
That's the other...
Sorry, Brett.
No, I was just gonna say, that's the other thing is, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Let's find out what we've got to play with before we start doing what we think we want to do. But we might not be able to do it anyways.
Yeah. Mike, how long do you think it would take for you to get some information back on those?
Not long, I've already reached out, so.
Okay. And I know we're talking about the Parks and Rec, talking about town clerk. Are there any others that have been, I'm trying to think, like I thought that there were two more out of that group that have been like historically low. If we can include those just to get an idea.
Yep. Okay.
I hate creating more work for you, I apologize, but.
Wasn't the building inspector, wasn't that the other one?
No, that was in the other contract.
Yeah, pulling them up now, but, Aaron, again, I hate to put you on the spot, but you're not a member of any of the unions, correct?
Correct.
So does the previously negotiated, I guess it was that rate in a contract or a bylaw? I guess I'm just trying to go back and understand.
So when you're talking about the positions, you were looking at positions in the SENA A contract. And this position is in the wage and salary plan.
Okay.
So it doesn't even fall into the contracts.
No, it's in the wage and salary plan.
So what does that, what's the implication to us for that, Mike?
Well, the wage and salary plan is approved by town meeting. So any adjustments in the wage and salary plan that would go above what was approved previously would have to go back to town meeting and be approved.
Okay. So I think to Jack's earlier point, we try to work within the confines that we have now, and to Brad's point, let's figure out what that is, you know, based on information that Mike gets, and let's see where we are if you know, we can do something in the positive.
So I'm looking at the wage and salary scale, and it is very fair to say that up and down this line, this position is the closest to the bottom of the scale as all the others.
Can you share that? Do you have that in a format you can share, Jack, or no?
Indeed, I do. So let me get back to my Zoomy window. Share screen.
Zoomy.
Share. All right. I know when you guys are able to see that, I'll zoom in a little bit so we can. So yellow is the Parks and Rec here. So proposed, the low end of the proposed scale is 1914. It's 1932. That's more than $2.50 more. That's more than $2, almost $2.50 more. I mean, this is empirical evidence that this position is on the lowest end of the scale that was approved. So I understand, Brad, your point about trying to go through and do it fairly. However, I see something that is unfair now in terms of this scale.
Reject.
So I think it's probably best for Mike, Sharon, and I'm happy to get involved. We can talk about this offline to try to come up with a way to do this appropriately and come back and present at a future point a way to try to start this on the right path. Does that sound
fair? Jack, I think that sounds great. Is this in Excel? Like, can you put in a column there so we can see like how people range so that we can kind of pull out those buckets of lowest, middle, and highest?
So this is just a PDF that Mike had sent back in October. So Mike, I don't know if you have this as an Excel.
I don't, no.
Okay. But I can forward this around to everybody so they'll have it at the top of their inbox.
Does your handy dandy PDF program, can you pull it apart and put it in Excel?
Yes, but no. The formatting tends to get a little bit messed up. It's easier to go from PDF to Word. Excel gets a little bit cranky when you try to do that.
That's okay. Do it in Word and then you can copy it into Excel. I can help. You do step 1, I'll do step 2.
It's on my other computer, so I'll have to play with that later.
Gonna leave us in this presentation and kind of going forward.
I think we're awaiting more information, right? I mean, Mike, he has made recommendations, and I think that information will help him too, but
See, back to that point, even on those ranges, this is, even if we made the change, it's a budget for next year, I think we're still safe, because this position's so underpaid. And what I don't want to, and I don't think it will happen, what I just don't want it to be is just because we're waiting on surveys and this, that it gets approved for the 1932. I think that'd be a tragedy at an hourly rate with no additional hours. I think it really, we need I think it's a double, both those things need to happen. So
Michael, you're right. So let's see what comes back. I mean, in other discussions, when we were doing negotiations, we'd look at and we'd be like, okay, it's a $10,000 impact to the budget. That's fine. Go ahead and do it, right? I don't think this situation is any different. I think it will just help to have more information to make that decision. But we have guidelines to work in, and we'll just need to figure out how that's executed.
but the next presentation of that would be to the FinCom. Right? The next group that will see this is FinCom again after Mike makes some changes. Right? They've already seen it once. The next presentation will be back to FinCom. Then
why couldn't the next one be back to us? Mike said he doesn't expect it will take long to get that information. So
okay, all right. Then,
I'm asking. That's my question.
I don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but I just want to make. I don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but I want to be the squeaky wheel.
No, I think this goes back to our earlier discussion about the process and who sees what when. So
right.
I think that before this particular topic goes back to FinCom, we should revisit it as a board to make sure that we can provide our recommendation. Because I can only imagine how awkward it is to be a department of one having to discuss a wage and salary line item twice in 1 week in a public forum. So I think we've taken it as far as we can in this format. I think it's best to take it offline as discussed, and then we can come back and present something. So if everyone's cool with that, let's plan with that, and maybe Mike, you let us know when you're ready to show this again.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your patience and your hard work, Sharon.
Thank you for listening.
Any other business to come before the board tonight, Mike? Are we good?
We're good.
All right, our next meeting is Thursday, the 18th. We will be graced with the presence of the PBC and Mike Viveros from DBVW to talk about the building projects once again. We got the estimates, the revised estimates this week. I believe Mike forwarded them to you guys as well. So now we have, I will say, without getting into spoilers, the two numbers came back pretty darn close to one another in a matter of I think couple $1,000 on a multi-million budget. So I think there's validity there. I think Mike, we'd asked for some additional information to be ready for the 18th.
And Joe Byetta will be on too.
Yep, to talk about the athletic fields. So we'll be able to have a good discussion.
Okay, and we're having another block on budget too, right? Pretty much standing to keep in front.
I thought you were gonna do them on the opposite Thursdays, but
No, I thought we did this one just because we were behind. We're gonna try to catch ourselves up with this. And then since next week was the holiday, we're gonna try to get ahead next week, no?
right, well, we'll probably put a few on because
Sure.
you gotta have water and sewer, and you're gonna have the building projects. We don't wanna keep you too late.
I think
You mean you don't wanna stay up too late?
some FinCom meeting is on the 22nd, so we'll be behind them again. So whatever we can do to try to keep pace, if not fall too far behind.
Okay. One ahead of them now,
Nice. Who did
Oh, we are? Which one?
town clerk.
Okay.
Oh, excellent. I don't know why that makes me feel good. Only one ahead.
You're not well.
It's a competition.
Yeah, apparently.
With that said, Chair would entertain a motion to call it a night.
So moved. Second. Jinx, twice.
And when you say call it, I think you mean adjourn the meeting, just for technical sake.
Jen can translate my ramblings sometimes. All right, the one and only vote for this evening. So Meg,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
I too vote yes. Thank you, everyone. It was a great night, good discussion.
Good night, everybody. I'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you, guys.
See you later.
Good night. Have a good weekend.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Renee and Jackson. Brandon again. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.